Welcome to Earth Radiance TV. I'm your host, Tammie Pike, and I'm so honoured to have you on this journey of self-love and self-discovery with me. I have created Earth Radiance TV as a remedy to combat women feeling alone in life, love, family, and business. Within this series, I will be interviewing women who are going against the normalcy of society and are living, loving, mothering, and doing business their own unique way. So get comfortable and give yourself permission to be inspired by the wisdom, love, learnings, and truth of each woman as she unfolds her journey with you. Welcome, beautiful, to Earth Radiance, a place for you to be real, be wild, and be you. Welcome to Earth Radiance TV. I'm your host, Tammie Pike, and today I have the divine and beautiful Marilou Coombe. Thank you so much for being here today, Marilou.
Oh, darling heart, thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. So a little bit about Marilou. Marilou is passionate about all aspects of her life, mainly her two divine, energetic boys, aged 4 and 6, as well as her wonderful husband. Having children has definitely been her big defining moment of change and taking action to have a more fulfilling life. With a Bachelor in Social Science, Certificate 4 in Training, and coaching training, including NLP, Marilou is passionate in helping children and families live a highly purposeful life, working on mindset and gaining clarity about all aspects concerning mind, body, and soul. Born in Lebanon and moving to Australia at the age 10, without speaking a word of English, has had a lasting impact that Marilou has had to work through her adolescent and adult years. She can now see the value of the rough patches in her life thanks to an inspiring mother and the personal development courses she has attended throughout her life. Now focusing on working with children and instilling empowering mindsets from early on in life, her mission is to empower them to have a strong self-belief stemming from their core to achieve anything they set out to do, and to be someone in their life that they can reach out to without receiving any criticism or judgment. She absolutely loves and is driven by connection to self and to others. She weaves yoga, meditation, and all of her life's experience into her work. And I can tell you from experience, she is truly a gifted children's coach, because my beautiful 2 eldest children have spent, I think it was nearly 3 months with being coached and mentored by Marilou, and have seen a huge impact, especially in my son, who was struggling with self-worth and self-confidence. So Marilou, thank you so much for sharing yourself today, and for also coming in and, you know, really bringing awareness to that children too, you know, deserve to have the capacity to be supported, especially outside the family, because as we know, sometimes it can be really difficult in that family environment to actually look outside of the square and really see what children are needing, especially coming from that parent guilt, shame, or over trying to be too much responsible for our children. So I would love for you to share today about what it is that you have come to be doing now in your life.
It's really, really interesting, because I never understood it as, you know, this is actually kids development, like as a psychology thing, until I kind of went to uni and went, oh yeah, child psychology, this. But then it really, everything got cemented for me when I did have children, and understanding what it is that I want for my boys, and looking at how I'm living that, you know, how am I being the example that I want for my boys, but also understanding that one day my boys were just naturally going to move away from me, and that's got nothing to do with me being a parent. And it just made me reflect a lot on my own childhood, especially at the age that I came out to Australia in, you know, between that ages of about 6 to about 12, it's still very much attachment to the family and to the primary carer, and probably perhaps more to the dad, like so the second primary carer. But the child slowly starts moving through that phase of working out on who their identity is and who they are outside of the family circle. And that's why a lot of, you know, the tweens and teenagers, like, people kind of have a go at that, oh, they're so difficult, and that it's actually biologically driven, that they are starting to, you know, wanting to learn about themselves, wanting to learn about who am I? I'm not what mummy and daddy says anymore. Like, they want to explore out of that. And that's when we start as humans constructing what who we are and who we want to be as a human being, right? So all this stuff that we do as parents is still very important. And in that stage in particular, for parents, they need to be that pillar. They need to be the pillar in the storm is how I'd like to sort of see it. So that when a Titanic hits, which is the child, you're that pillar that's still strong and that's not going to crumble and collapse when that ship hits you. So that's why it's really important for parents to know themselves and to work on their own stuff as well, when having children, because children just naturally test us. And I really do believe that children also bring out the things that we need to learn or the things that we need to see about ourselves. So it's not necessarily always just your child. So there's kind of a lot of dynamics that happen with a family. So where do I come into all of that? I suppose, like just going back to when I did come here, I really truly wish I had that mentor. I had that someone that was, I didn't want to trouble my parents. Like none of us spoke English. My parents were trying to get work, trying to learn a new culture, a new language, assimilate. Like there was so much going on. And I never ever wanted to go to my parents and be a burden on them or, worry them with my own stuff. So I always wish I had that someone, that trusted someone that I could just speak to, that isn't going to assess me, that isn't going to judge me, that isn't going to tell any authorities on me because I wasn't doing anything illegal. It was just someone I needed to talk to. And so I suppose I love being that for kids, being there, and it doesn't have to be just through work. Like I know I naturally do it, with my kids' friends and parents at school, and it's just the way that it works. I actually more and more am moving towards wanting the collective and society to recognize whether you're a parent, whether you're not a parent, you do play a role in young people's lives. So you also do need to look at how you show up in life. How do you show up at a bus stop? How do you show up through the checkout counters when you're going through, your grocery store? Because there's always young kids watching you. And when I hear adults, and in particular older generation, but in general, I hear adults saying, oh, the youth of today and this of today. And I'm like, but how are you playing a role in that? Because the youth from somewhere. And as a society, we need to take responsibility for that. And we need to say, well, how am I showing up when a young person is watching me, and they behave that way? How am I contributing to this as well, whether it's a positive or negative? So my role kind of comes in where, it's not only parents who have problem children or children with problems that come and see me. In fact, it's the parents that I feel like are a lot more aware. They may be coaches themselves. They're into personal development and they understand how important this is in their child's life. I feel like they're the ones that come and see me. Because I'm not a counsellor, and I make that very, very clear that I don't counsel your child. I don't use my psychology stuff on your child. I use it more with myself just to understand the development side of things. I don't believe we empower people either. I think empowerment comes from within. But what I do, I feel like I'm just the vehicle there to make that child give their brain the evidence of, well, okay, you're not confident. So what are you going to do about being confident? If you believe something, so if you say to yourself, I'm stupid, is that true? Well, yes, it is if you say it. But if you say, hey, I'm smart, is that true? Well, then yes, it is because you say it. So what's true is what you say to yourself. And quite often, growing up, I've seen women in particular who are, in their 40s and 50s. I was surrounded by a lot of mum's friends who were doing, this personal development stuff, and a lot of them would be like they were broken and they had these layers to peel off and deal through from their childhood. So I kind of think, like, why do we wait until we're at that stage in life to work on this? And I'm not saying that, by your child having a mentor or a coach is not going to have problems. I mean, that is just part of development and growing up. So let's get realistic. But what it is, it gives them the tools to think for themselves. How am I contributing to this in my life? How am I responsible for this in my life? Oh, yeah, look, there's somebody bullying me. What am I going to do about it rather than play victim? I look really yuck today. How am I going to talk to myself about that? So it's those sort of things that I think are really important. Sorry, Bobby's coming to say hello. He's like to be in a lot of cameos at the moment, I think. So that's what I really, really love focusing with children about. And more, it's not just about me working with the children. Like I really want the adults to become aware of how they're showing up in general in young people's lives. So I'm finding like the articles that I've been writing about lately, you know, like shifting focus so that everybody looks at, well, how am I contributing? What is my role in this? Yeah, I hope that answers your question because I don't even remember what it was now.
No, it's all right. I love it because you're so passionate about it. And, you know, as a coach myself, and that's why I did come to you, because I was like, I know my child is, you know, he wasn't in a dire situation, but I could see that there's places in him that he just needed support and love, but he couldn't find it from me because I'm too close to him. Yep. And so it's that outside source to help him see into himself, because a mother's love is all consuming, and you know, a child goes, but you're my mum, you just love me no matter what. Yes. But if we can help them have that grounded confidence and self-worth and self-love and self-care by being cultivated outside of the family, I think it gets even stronger then.
Yes,
and
I 100% agree. Yes.
Yeah, and
I would look, I mean, I'm a child coach, but I would look for someone who does what I do. And I suppose that's why I'm very conscious of surrounding myself with the people that I want to be mentors in my children's life. You know, mine are still quite young, they're 7 and 5. So, but I already see the shift, for example, with, you know, my 7-year-old not being so drawn, like it's almost like he still holds on to me like this, but now everything's about dad. So, you know, from 0 to 6, 7, it's all about the mother, right? Like, and I'm talking about, you know, a fully functioning family here, like a mum, a dad, you know, no separation. I'm talking about, you know, that family unit, generally speaking, 0 to 6 is all about that primary care of the mother. Then from about 6 to 14, especially for boys, it moves towards the father. And then from that about 13, 14 onwards, but mind you, in my coaching experience, especially when I've coached girls, I find with girls it's younger. So with girls, it kind of comes in at about, you know, as young as 10 or 11, where they look for that outside mentor. They start recognizing themselves away from the family, you know, of the questions of, am I? What are my interests? What do I like doing? And so that's why, you know, parents report a lot of behavioral changes in their kids, like, who abducted my child? Who's this alien? Because everything becomes like, no, I don't want to do that. And everything's about testing you, about seeing, you know, but really what truly is happening underneath all of that is they're working out, who am I? What's my identity? What do I stand for? What are my passions? Not just because mum and dad take me hiking that I like hiking. Do I actually like hiking? Like, these are just there's just on a simple terms, what starts happening, you know, and then that probably goes on until about, you know, sometimes up to even the age of 18. I mean, the brain isn't fully even grown in a human until we're 25. Like, a brain is not fully grown until that age, you know. So imagine what's happening for a child in that time. And that's why I just think it's so important to think about mentors in your child's life. You know, it doesn't have to be paid, but just have a look, you know, like, are you putting them in sports where there is strong role models for them, where they can go and speak to them should anything come up with that child where they can't come and speak to you? I think it's very foolish of parents to think that our kids are ours forever. I think we, you know, and if we look at our own lives, and where we've had strong relationship with our parents, the waves that has ridden as well. And it's not going to be any different for our children. You know, our children will go through it too. And I think it's really important for us as parents to become wise about that and have the right people in place for our children, that, you know, the people that are aligned with our own values, so that when our child will go and speak to them, we'll know they're going to back up what we say at home as well, which I think is really important. So an example of that, you know, where my 7-year-old goes to karate, our sensei is amazing, and they go through all the values that we talk about at home in regards to respect and gratitude and family. And that is part of the class, you know, and every week they have a different value that they focus on. And, you know, I love it even, you know, with things like last week my 7-year-old got a leadership badge where Sensei recognized that a younger boy who needed to be led by my son, kind of got paired up together. And, Sensei was using my son as a good example. But my 7-year-old really took that to heart. And he was like, 2 days later, he was doing something at home and he had a little bit of a meltdown. And then afterwards he goes, Mummy, I didn't really act like a leader then, did I? So he actually was able to go back to that. And this is the age of 7 already, how it's impacting outside of the home. Because, our children are not always with us. Even if we homeschool them, they're not always with us. There's outside influences. So it's really important what are we as parents surrounding ourselves with? And then, what is our community looking like? And I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. And especially for, I guess, the women who are going to be watching this, they're going to be mums in business, and they're going to be already at that space where they're trying to find that balance of being able to, work and then have that connection with their children. Because this is a thing, by having that mentorship for your children, it helps you. Like for me, I'm constantly coached. Like I always have a coach because I love it. And that's why I coach others, because it's something that is my medicine. But also seeing how it supports my children in having a better relationship with me as well, to become more independent and self-responsible. And we learn as a mum, and especially, again, I really do think that the mothers in business, they have to learn how to do that balancing act of, my kid, I need to actually get work done. My child needs to be self-responsible. How do I empower them? And when we get stuck in that, it's really good to me. I think also, like you said, to have that influence around them, to be really supportive of saying, your actions have consequences, not in a bad way either, but you know what I mean? Like really bringing that home. But also too, I think with having someone that they're having to mentor to, they can talk about these times where they find it might be a bit uncomfortable to have responsibility for themselves. How can I cope with that? And I know with each session, you really took Tom to a place where it was focusing on what is he, struggling with or, dealing with right in this moment. And then at the end of the session, we'd have a conversation, you and I, on how to then integrate that in, or a message, or, activities and stuff. And I find that this was really important for me as I continue to grow my business, because I want my children to go in themselves in a way that isn't normal in our society.
Yes.
And do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely, 100%. I want all my clients to be like you and Tom, to be quite honest with you. And I think it's a really, really, really important when like what you've done with Tom is also so much more about them just being self-reliant. What I love about that is, and because you've mentioned it and we can speak about it openly, I'm really big on showing our kids what we do. A lot of think they have to have the balance by trying to juggle everything. And what happens when you juggle too many things? Like try to juggle so many plates on your hand, and you're going to smash and break them. And I think this whole illusion of what balance is, like I would say to moms, work out what balance actually means to you and your family. Like every single one of us is so different. And 2, how do you get your kids involved in what you do? And the fact that you coach, but then you get somebody for your child to coach them, that shows them what mum actually does. And that gives them that permission, like you said, to talk about those feelings, to delve into things that normally they would not delve into outside of your home. So it's really nice to have that extra barrier where it's like, oh, this is the work that my mum does, and this is really important, and look how it's helped me. This is how mum helps others. Like for me, it's really important to kind of not separate ourselves from being mum to being businesswomen. Yes. But then again, every one of us who's in business runs by different values and different ideals. So what I would say to a lot of mums is get really clear on your why and your values and be driven from that place. And I promise you, you can't go wrong if you teach your children then to do the same. Yeah, because you're being that role model, and then you're allowing your children, just be very aware to not say they must do it this way, because then that's not allowing them to also live within their values. You know, so you live your values, get clear on your values, what's really important to you, why you're driven to do what it is that you're driven to do. Have your children involved in that, and that allows them then to be able to shine and be their best selves. I really, truly believe that. And, you know, I can wholeheartedly say, like, I use my own kids as guinea pigs for this, and I test things out on them all the time. The poor buggers.
Right, because I think as our consciousness shifts and becomes more awakened to, we can't just keep to the old ways because that's how it's done. We have to look to new ways and different ways in empowering ourselves and our children. And like you said, it's definitely about being the role model and having all sorts of things into place that once would never be thought of or once would be, you know, really looked down upon. It's really standing in your power and saying, this is what feels good for me. This is what I feel my family would benefit, especially my children. Yeah. And which you've so beautifully shared in what you've already shared with us in this moment. But I'd like to ask for you too, like, you have 2 children, you have a husband, you have many different facets that you do within your life and in your business. How do you yourself find that balance? What's your unique way of doing that?
My unique way is to actually not even think about the balance. I think it really is something that mums put a lot of pressure on themselves to do. And I think what's really, really important is I'll show you something that I do. So I've got a whiteboard sitting here next to me, and I've got my list of all the things that I would like to achieve. Massive vision boarding, whether it's once a year or whether it's every 3 months. It's whenever your heart needs it, whenever your things shift, to get clear. Get clear on what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it. And what I think is really important is to drop into the moment and go, does this feel good for me? What is it that I really need to do right now? And it really does come down to practicing mindfulness, as you know, but I call it mind aware. So be aware. What is your mind saying? What is your heart saying? What is your gut saying? So, for example, how do you balance something where you have a client coming up? Let's just say, I'll use me as an example. So I have a client coming up, like say at 8 p.m., you know, but before that I need to do homework, I need to cook, and I feel like everybody's pulling at me at one point, at every point. My biggest thing with balancing all of that is actually just stopping everything and just coming back into that moment and going, I know it sounds so overused, but like breathing is a really important thing, because when you become stressed, you forget to breathe and then your brain's not getting the oxygen that it needs. So just to tap back and just breathe, tap back into your heart and go, what is it that I really want to do right now? Like, what is it that, is anybody dying? Is anything burning? Is anything falling apart? Because we operate from that space a lot of time, and most of the time, none of those things are happening. So it's like, just stop and take a break and go, what is it that needs to be done right now? So even if my child is tantruming and I feel like that's not where I need to tend to in that moment, because if I leave the stove, then everything will get on fire. My child needs to understand, you know, that I am supporting them, I'm holding space for them and I'm there, but I can't just swoop in and be there for them in that moment. So balance isn't about trying to do so many things at once. Balance is, for me personally, is taking that break and stopping and going, what is it that I really need to do in this moment? And, you know, I think also as mothers in particular and women in general, we feel like we need to be wearing a lot of hats at the same time. And I feel like in particular in the last, I don't know, say 12 to 18 months, I've shifted that a lot in myself, because I can't be everything to everybody. I will no longer be around if I continue to run from that space. So I've really had to step back and go, how can I look after myself, what I need to do in order to be the best for everybody else? And by everybody else, I mean my immediate family, because, you know, my husband and my children, and then, you know, perhaps my mother and brother. But beyond that, it's almost like I fully need to be in a space where I'm fully supporting myself to be able to do it for other people. And then everything just becomes easier when I come from that space. Like, I'm not pushing as much. I'm not struggling as much. It's just, yeah. And if it ever does, I just have to stop. literally stop. I know it sounds kind of, it's like, oh my God, I've got all this stuff to do, I can't stop. But it's like, if you don't stop, that's when everything will come crashing down and it will force you to stop. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my world, that's how it feels.
It's perfect, makes perfect sense. And it's just such an easy but not easy as well to do, because when you're in that moment and you're not focused on, or having clarity, you just get so in that tizzy of a space where you're just like in this whirlwind and nothing seems right, everything's upside down. But as soon as you come back to center and you get real with yourself, what is really necessary in this moment? What is it that truly needs to happen? And then you go, oh, actually my to-do list isn't 20 things long, it's only like 2 things. Get the kids fed, put them to bed. You know what I mean? It's just so thing. If we really, instead of going, oh my God, I have all this other stuff, it's like, no. Let's get real for it, because we take on too much responsibility. We put so much on our plate to be busy, but really in essence, it's we can make it as simple as possible. We can take a step back. We don't have to do it all. And we can do things that support us in doing what we love to do and showing up in a way that feels good for us as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And again, that comes down to, we talk about modeling for children. Think about, like, I know for me, I would love for my children to get into business and for them to think for themselves. And, even if you're going to get a job, by all means, get a job, but make it something that you love doing and something that you're passionate about and driven by, right? So again, when we are doing all these things, how are we being when we're doing all these things? And that's the whole thing when we talk about, don't do so much, but be. It's not about stopping and not doing your stuff, but how are you being when you're going about your day doing things? And I think it's from that place that you come from. So I highly recommend to any stressed out mum and business owner, mums with their own business in particular, to be able to just stop. And I'm coming right now from a space as well where I've given myself a whole weekend to myself, solo, away, 3 hours down at the beach, writing my book, finishing 2 workbooks ready to be printed. And I'm showing off here because I'm so proud of myself. And then I get people who are definitely not in the personal development space saying to me, oh my God, I don't think I could leave my kids. And how could you do that? And I say to them, because I'm being the best mother that I could possibly be. I feel back with my kids all over me loving even harder than I did before, sharing my wins with them. And, when I say to my child, I'm so proud of you of doing that, they can also turn around and say, Mum, I'm so proud of you for doing that. And now I've got my 7-year-old wanting to write a book with me because of what I do and what I share in my business of what I'm doing. So I'm lighting up their passion in them because I've given myself permission to do that. And, it doesn't mean that, to be the best mom, I have to be there with my kids 24/7. And it goes back to what you said before as well, to give your children that space to be independent, to be self-sufficient, to be able to think for themselves. At the end of the day, I ask parents when I am to coach their children, what is the most important thing for you that you want for your child? Do you want them to be anxious, clingy? What is it that you want for your child? And most parents would say, I want a confident child. I want a child who's going to be happy. Well, what does that look like and what does that mean? And then how are you mirroring that to give them permission to be that way themselves? So it kind of all goes hand in hand, doesn't it? It's really kind of
It does. It is so synchronistic with each other, and it all flows in together. And that's the thing, is letting go of the guilt and shame on what you want to do, because it might not be with the family. It's, like you said, it might be a weekend away. I went away for 10 days to New Zealand to become a choir teacher. That was my first time ever. Not that you need to go that long, but what I'm saying is that was the first time in my whole entire life I did something without guilt and shame, and I truly embraced what I was doing. And, I've been away many times before that and after, but I remember, like you said, doing it without guilt and shame and feeling so good about it, coming home and just being all of me, which meant that I was more of a mum, more of a wife, more, connected and open, because I had filled up my soul. So these are the things that we as mums can definitely do without thinking, oh, someone's going to say, isn't that bad, leaving your children alone with your husband?
But that's exactly what you've just hit on, Tammie. You've just hit on it, haven't you? It's that guilt and shame that mothers carry is not their own. It actually is not their own guilt and shame. It's all, you just hit it. It's like, what is somebody going to say? But see, what somebody is going to say only affects us because of the meaning that we put to it. If we're really true to our own values and we're very clear about what type of parent we are and what we want to be, whether you work full time, like there's some parents that are not there around for their children at all. There are some that are there all the time and don't do anything other than just stay at home. Honestly, it's none of that is wrong or right. Nothing in life is wrong or right. What is right for you is what you do for your family, as long as it's aligned with your values, and as long as you are coming from a space and living from a space that I know it sounds like this values thing, right? But the more I dig into it, the more I sort of say to myself, I'm speaking from my own experience, that I want kind, compassionate, strong men. That's who I want to raise, yeah? I actually had an interview with somebody where I said to her, I came to the conclusions, how am I raising kind and compassionate men? For example, when as a mother, I used to hide when it was, when I was getting my period. That once a month, my boys had no idea why mum just needed to go into the bedroom and hide and have that total time out to herself. And when I opened up and started sharing with them of what happens to the female body and why mum is doing this, I was able to then foster that kindness and compassion in them, of how I would want them to treat women, of how I would want them to understand what's going on in my world. Does that make sense? And it's not a yuck process. Then that helped me as a mother to also embrace my body and the natural physiological things that happen with her. And I guess why I'm sharing this is because any of the guilt and the shame that we feel as mothers, it's not actually our own when we stop and really look at it. Not if we are living in alignment with our values. It just, shouldn't be there. And shouldn't, what a word. But we can eliminate that. We really could. And I say to any mother, if she's feeling any guilt or shame, then embrace that and have a look at why you are feeling this way. Is it your stuff? Or, are you the type of mother who really wants to spend a lot of time with her children, but, you're all the time on business? And is that something then you need to stop and shift and change so that you are not feeling that way? Or are you not a mumsy mum and don't want to be around your children all the time? And again, that's okay, as long as you are being true to yourself. Because I truly believe your kids will then find someone to meet their values. So if, say, a child is really clingy and wants mummy there all the time, right? But then a mum isn't someone who's always there, that child will find someone who will need that for them. And that's okay. Because what it will also give that child permission to do is to live within their own values and not to go, but mum screwed up my life. Well, no, dude. You can take responsibility for your own life and make it what you want it to be. You don't need to wait until you're 40 to go see a psychologist or a coach or anything like that. You've got that within you from quite an early age.
Yeah, amazing. It does. It makes so much sense, and I love everything you say, and I could talk to you all day about
I know.
this because I do. I love what you do. I love everything you're about and what you have created to support, the children of our future. It really means so much. And just knowing what my children have experienced with you and how they've grown, you're really such a gift to this world and to mothers like me, parents who are wanting better for their children, who are wanting deeper support and that in-ground, really grounded gifts and self-care, self-worth, self-love, all that kind of stuff, and confidence. So thank you so much, Marilou, for being here today, for sharing so honestly and authentically. It does mean so much and it resonates so deeply with me. And so I would love for you to share where people can find more ways to connect with you.
Okay. Facebook is a point with my Facebook page, which is Orchestrate Parenting Hub with Marilou Coombe. I'm also in the process of updating my website, mariloucoombe.com, and I will have all my offerings on there. I'm interweaving a lot of the mindfulness and yoga stuff with that as well, because I do go into some schools and I run yoga programs, and I see such an awesome benefit doing it that way with children, again, and helping them understand their own bodies and how all of that works. But yeah, I would say best place is Facebook and my website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, beautiful, for being here today and sharing your amazing wisdom and your passion. I love your passion. It's just so...
I know, I get really like, oh.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'm sending you so much love and so much gratitude, because you are truly an amazing woman.
Thank you, beautiful lady. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching another episode of Earth Radiance TV, and be sure to click on the links to find more about what Marilou does and where you can find her. Sending you all so much love, and remember that you are so worthy of following your dreams. Awesome.